Coming up next, we have Ryan Whelan. He's the technical product manager over at Devo. Ryan is going to be talking to us again about insider threats. I said again, right? Obviously, insider threat is part of what we're here today to talk about. Folks, this again is another fantastic presentation. And I'm going to tell you from doing a lot of incident response consulting over the years, insider threat is typically something most organizations don't pay enough attention to. Until the proverbial incident happens, and then they pay lots of attention to it after it's too late. So Ryan, I'm excited to see what you're bringing for us today on being more proactive in that space. Go ahead, take it away, my friend.
Awesome. Thank you, Jake, for that introduction. I appreciate that. So yeah, like Jake said, we're going to be taking a look at insider threats as a shocker to everybody. But specifically, we're going to be kind of diving into high level what they are, types of insider threats, what to look for, bring it kind of back to phishing, because we do have a little bit of an undertone of phishing, seeing as how those are very real insider threats. And then, of course, we're going to talk about how to lower the risk of insider threats, and then bring in how Devo will help your company also lower the risk and how prevent some sort of issues that may come down the line. So let's get started. And there it is. Okay, great. So again, my name, Ryan Whelan. I'm a technical product manager over at Devo Technology. I've actually had about 10 years of security experience in various technology-based companies. I started my career as an automation engineer, then switched over to more of a website security analyst, where I was helping my clients and companies stop DDoS and anti-scrapers. And then after that, I kind of moved more into a compliance and risk-based roles. And then finally, I landed in the product space, helping Devo Technology create out-of-the-box alerts for their SIEM platforms and SecOps platforms, and then also providing some immediate value to our customers through those alerts and through our other technologies that we use. So that being said, okay, there it goes. Cool. Insider threats. We're going to talk again. I've already kind of mentioned this, but to go back to it, we're going to talk about what they are, the types of insider threats that you may encounter, what to look for, bring it back to phishing, then lower the risk, and then again, talk about Devo. So let's keep moving on. All right. Insider threats. What are they? Well, as you can probably imagine, insider threats come from within the company. And in fact, 98% of companies feel vulnerable to insider threats. So this is something that everybody's aware of, that they're all thinking about across multiple industries. And we'll actually kind of explore some statistics about the industries that are affected by insider threat breaches in a later slide. And insider threats are just more than threats coming from disgruntled employees. Could be from privilege misuse, data mishandling, cloud attacks, configurations, and these kind of threats are oftentimes related to a lack of knowledge or processes. And if you have well-defined and secure processes and very vast knowledge of insider threats, you can lower this threat severity. And we'll, again, go kind of more into detail about that. And then these threats affect every aspect of the business. We're talking sales, legal, compliance, even IT, you name it, they're affected by it, because they are, again, within the company. So let's look at the insider impact of, industry impact of insider threats. As you can see here, we got two kind of charts or graphs. One on the left-hand side are the breaches tied to insider threats by the industry. 60% in healthcare have insider threat breaches, 30% in the public sector, which is something. And then even a little less than 50% at 44% in the information technology realm, which is what you kind of not expect as much, because they are the most tech savvy folks involved in companies. And then also on the right-hand side, we have 50% of organizations that are suffering from operational disruption, with a little bit less than that at 48% saw a loss of critical data and IP. And then a little more than a third at 37% have experienced damage to their brand or reputation in some way. And damage to the brand or reputation is probably the hardest to calculate in terms of losses, and is kind of the hardest to come back from. In fact, Microsoft, I think, is actually doing a new brand recognition and helping their brand by providing certain things to their employees and kind of correcting the way that people think about them by looking out for their consumers and their employees. Okay, so we talked a little bit about the impacts. Let's talk a little bit about how there's 3 different types of insider threats. We have the turncloaks, the pawns, and the third parties. Turncloaks are a cool little term for them, but they're essentially the malicious or disgruntled employees. It does sound almost like a Dungeons and Dragons class, but no, these are a term used for those employees that are seeking some sort of monetary gain, or working with another company that they may be trying to move towards, to try and seek some sort of personal gain, as I said, or compensation. We also call them inside agents or double agents if you're James Bond fans, whatever you'd like to call them. But these are folks that require stricter controls around privileges and data exfiltration. And then we also have pawns. These are the more classic phishing, can be considered negligent at times, but they're the ones that click the links. They have, their uncles are princes in Nigeria. They're going to fall for the phishing attempts, spear phishing, whatever it is. So they require a little bit more vigilance and processes to help them be less anxious about causing any sort of issues. And again, these pawns can be HR pawns, legal pawns, whatever department you may work in, you could potentially be an insider. And then lastly, we have third parties. So third parties, as most people will imagine, do not have the same oversight that you would with somebody that's directly working in your purview or with your company. These people could be a vendor or a contractor that's helping create some sort of platform, or they could even be doing some marketing campaigns for you, whatever it may be. They also have a chance of being an insider threat. So what people usually do is they require strong NDAs for risk mitigation or some repercussions for any sort of incidents that they may cause or disruptions. And then there's also some tight controls around using the company equipment so that we don't have any misuse there or anything that involves them doing something with personal information or IP, intellectual property, and could be causing troubles in your company. So they're a little bit harder to control, but they're still important to have some risk mitigation around there. Okay, so we've talked about insider threats and types, the impacts to the industry. But I've also mentioned before disgruntled employees. Well, what exactly is a disgruntled employee, and how do I know what a disgruntled employee is? Well, a disgruntled employee is probably someone who will be sidestepping policies, displaying disgruntled behavior. And I know that's not very helpful if I use it in the definition, but to expand on that, disgruntled behavior includes being argumentative, no showing, taking long breaks, just kind of, not acting their usual self, I'd like to say. They can also be extremely negative and, stuff like that. But they're also downloading unsafe, unknown applications, significant amounts of data. They're using unapproved storage devices. They may be bringing, external hard drives from home and plug it into their computer. Or they could be like, hey, I found a USB in the parking lot. I'm going to plug that in as well. Stuff that they don't really seem to care as much about, because they could be either looking for more compensation and looking for a role elsewhere, or they could just be saying, you know what, I'm done with this. But not only are they accessing types of significant data, but they could be hoarding it and using those storage devices to hoard the data, things that we don't really want to have happen, or we want to be aware of them doing within the industry. Okay. All right, so let's bring this back to phishing. Phishing, a definition of phishing is the fraudulent practice of sending emails in order to induce individuals to reveal personal information. That's right. That's your classic HR received an email from somebody saying, hey, I need the list of everybody's social securities. We're all getting raises. Send it to me right away. All of these attempts come from outside of the company, but the risk is inherited by inside of the company. And these attackers leverage social engineering techniques, might be a buzzword, but to dive a little bit deeper into that, what we mean by that is there's a sense of urgency. Spear phishing, for example, uses someone's clout to essentially trick the user into sending this information. And there's also attempts to not only use this clout, but make sure that they'd be looked in favorably if they've done this in the time frame required. So to kind of counteract these phishing attempts and social engineering techniques, we often implore or try to use continuous monitoring to isolate the higher risk employees, and then use that to kind of build controls or risks around them, and also to mitigate the potential attacks on those employees. Speaking of employees, I always like to say employees are the last line of defense when it comes to phishing. They're the gatekeepers. They will let the attacker get what they want. They will open the gates, either to let them in from clicking a link or to actually send them the information via email. So again, you've seen this in security awareness training and stuff. Always check those URLs and always try to work with your security teams if you see anything fishy. All right. So we talked about insider threats, their impact, what they are, how to spot some disgruntled employees, phishing, and how that works with insider threats. Let's talk about preventing insider threats. And I oftentimes like to use a metaphor of almost building a house or building a castle. If you're a big, round table of the Camelot kind of guy, or so let's just kind of go with that. So using that metaphor of building a castle, step one is to lay the foundation. And to do that, we always like to say, develop a strong set of security policies. And what this means is you address the risk profile of your business. You try and figure out, all right, we're accepting of these kind of risks, not accepting of these kind of risks. And then we develop policies to help teams navigate those risks and to make risk-based decisions. These policies should always be enforceable, actionable, and easy to understand, especially if you're a global company that uses employees across the seas in Europe or in South America. All employees need to be able to know exactly what the policy is asking of them, how to make these decisions, and so on and so forth. Also, as much to maybe your sales team's chagrin, security awareness training and privacy training should be used for, or should be given to all employees, including contractors, new hires, existing employees. And then not only that, but it should be renewed annually or even more frequently if you have higher risk employees that may be using more personal information or credit card information or intellectual property, or they're developers and they need more secure code training. Those trainings should be tailored to the audience and should always be helpful in terms of protecting your assets, which in my mind, the most important asset is the employee, right? Again, they're letting in the phishers. They're the ones protecting your assets and working on a day-to-day basis. So it's always important to include those employees and protect them. All right, so we laid the foundation. Now we need to build the walls. So to build the walls, how are we going to do that? Well, we're going to use network monitoring. But first, we need to make sure that we have an active inventory of approved assets and assets being used by the company, and then as well as make sure we know the priority and the severity of those assets going down. So if you have a production level server, that's probably going to be a higher risk or more used asset rather than a development environment where, if it goes down, we have some time to kind of fix it before customers may be aware or mad. And then another thing I always like to say is to record sessions, and then of course, record sessions. By recording sessions, you can use information to basically determine the higher risk applications, people, processes, and also it helps with root cause analysis. In case you do have an incident or a breach, you can get right to the bottom of things, find out through these sessions what exactly happened, who did what, the whole who, what, where, when, why kind of scenario. But network monitoring also barricades against insider threats and provides analysis of past incidents, like I said before. So if you have somebody that accidentally gets into your systems via a link or whatever, you can use network monitoring to see how they tried to get out. Once you get in, you got to be able to get out with the information, right? So network monitoring helps against that. And then you can also use it to barricade against potential IPs or things that you may not want inside of your network. But how can I what do I need to be able to monitor my network successfully? Well, that's a good question. What you would need is essentially to monitor packet sizes, access to unfamiliar servers, port scans coming from within inside the company. Like I said before, you come in, you got to get out somehow. And then, of course, endpoints and IPs should be also monitored to see the who and the what is going on and where they're going. And especially endpoints in terms of with this new work from home and the fact that people are using laptops, iPhones, whatever it may be, endpoints need to be protected as well. And then lastly, fine tune those alerts according to that organization's risk profile that we set up in step 1 to identify false positives. A system admin sudoing into a development environment to upload a new patch or something like that sounds pretty standard for their day-to-day role. So those are the kind of tuning that you would need to do for your alerts to make sure that, hey, this is as per usual, nothing to see here kind of thing. So we built the foundation, we built the walls. What do we do next? Well, you want to secure the interior with access monitoring. In fact, 37% of users are found to have excessive access privileges. So we got to be able to tie this access to specific roles, day-to-day activities, functional roles is a big key. They all say RBAC, right? Role-based access controls. I like that idea. I'm a big access monitoring guy myself, come from it, so I'm all for it. And then not only do you create these roles, but you want to be able to monitor groups with specific privileges and then review that access periodically. I recommend at least once a year for all access, maybe more frequently for access for more privileged roles or people using higher classifications of data and things like that. So you also want to perform user-based reporting to identify potential issues, misuse of credentials. A lot of things people do is they clone access. And cloning access is a great way to kind of cut the time in between some user not having access and some user having access, but oftentimes projects, procedures, tools, they change and the access might not reflect those changes. So when you clone that access role or whatever it may be, the permissions, you could have the potential of somebody misusing their credentials, causing a disruption through that. A different way to look at insider threats, right? And then not only that, but you also want to bring in access to your development cycle by conducting code reviews and peer reviews. It helps reduce the threat in that regard as well. Most people have seen Office Space, but if you haven't, one of the developers in that movie decided they were going to take a penny or a tenth of a penny off of every transaction that their company was conducting. And as you can probably imagine, that's a big issue and it ended in a funny way. I recommend that movie. But if you had code reviews and peer reviews in your process, you might be able to stop that from happening by having another set of eyes take a look on exactly what that individual has done. So moving on, step 4. Now we have to protect the organization. So we have the policies, we have the monitoring, we have the access. Let's bring in folks that have great background checks, both third parties and employees, make sure there's nothing fishy going on there. Then sign NDAs with companies or users that have access to PII data. That goes back to what I was saying when it comes to third parties and making sure they have NDAs in place. It won't necessarily prevent anything, but it will help deter and then also help recoup some losses, if any. Lastly, we want to create those controls and preventative measures to help contain the threats or reduce the threats. Controls are a great way to help standardize processes, help people feel assured that they're doing the right thing, and also help you be aware on if your risk profile is changing. Because once you create the control, you would like to reassess those policies, those controls, and make sure you have accurate coverage. Everybody knows in this organization or in this industry, we have a lot of different emerging threats, 0 days, things that may impact our company in different ways. So we want to assess those policies and rules to make sure that we're providing the security that we need to make sure we can conduct business in a risk-based decision-making way. All right, last but not least, we recommend leveraging your tools or your security information and event monitoring tools, specifically using next-gen analytics to give your teams power to monitor, investigate, and act on insider threats. I like to say that the watcher that never sleeps. They're up 24/7. They alert on all types of threats, and also they ingest all sorts of different logs. So more logs, fewer problems. You have all data sources coming into one location. You can collect global data from all different areas, and they also can help meet compliance requirements if need be. And they're extremely helpful in threat detection, investigation, and response. Nothing makes a SOC analyst happier than being able to load up their SIEM tool, find out exactly what happened, who did what, when, and why. And those tools give you the power to do so, and they will even alert you when something fishy is going on. And as you actually can see in the right-hand side, that is Devo's tool. That's our security operations tool. We have a nice little graph in the middle there that shows traffic coming from all sorts of locations. Can't really see it there, but the red right in the middle shows that there's something fishy going on, so that person has been blocked or there's been an alert generated. And we'll go a little bit more in detail on exactly how Devo can help you and your team provide this power of a SIEM tool. So what is Devo? Well, Devo is a combination of data, analytics, and community. Those are our 3 pillars that we really pride ourselves on, and we're able to handle insider threats through those pillars. We collect data at all scale. We support massive query loads. We have a native multi-tenancy, and we have always hot data store. That's right. We have about 400 days of hot data that you could query and find information from that data within seconds. In fact, a little less than 10 seconds to basically get your whole year's worth of data. Analytics is our second pillar. And not only do we bring the data in, but we'll actually analyze it for you using machine learning to detect what is going on. We enrich that data, and we also automate and orchestrate through different paths to help you block, alert, whatever it may be, and also provide some visual analytics, which we just saw on that last slide. But we also value community, and we feel that community and on-demand assistance and working together as security professionals will not only protect our company, but your company and our fellow companies as well, to be able to be more secure. Here at Devo, we're really trying to push the fact that security is everyone's issue. So that's how we feel about it. And to kind of dig a little bit more in depth exactly into our platform, a couple more slides on exactly what we do at Devo. And this slide in particular is our alerts overview. Usually it has more alerts here, but we selected one of our insider alerts that we have that comes out of the box. We have about 300 out of the box alerts that you can get into your system in no time at all. And we'll go a little bit more in detail there. As you may have noticed, I've also blocked off the IPs of these alerts. So I'm not an insider threat, but essentially what you're seeing here is a histogram of all of the alerts for the specific several DNS connections alert. You can see some of them have been better days than other days, but we have a year's worth of data right in front of you. And you can see exactly what's going on, right? This individual here decided that they were going to visit multiple DNS servers within a short period of time. So that's something we should be aware of. But you might be saying, well, hey, I have plenty of folks on my team that have reason to be doing these kinds of works. Well, guess what? We provide the technology, you can provide the rules. I've brought that out of the box alert to our edit alert definition page, and you can see here that we have the summary of what exactly is going on with the alert. You can change it so that, hey, I want to look at somebody connecting to multiple distinct DNS servers in the period of 30 minutes over just an hour, whatever you'd like, we can change it. You can even change the priority or the query being used to figure out exactly what is going on with this individual and their DNS connections. We really like to say, our out-of-the-box alerts can provide immediate value if it works for your organization. But if your organization is different and like to have it your own way, we're more than welcome to work with you on that as well. But not only that, we recognize that new threats come out quickly. I've had many nights, late nights working as a website security analyst when we have a new threat coming out there, such as WannaCry or Log4j. Our teams here are very dedicated to be able to provide you with instant or quick new threat detections as we discover them. So what you see here is our content manager from our security operations platform. In the top, you can see how many out-of-the-box alerts have been installed, how many custom alerts have been installed and being used, and then the amount of active alerts, and so on and so forth. We also provide the ability to use lookup tables to customize the alerts one step even further. A common alert that our customers use is alerting when anybody tries to access or gets through our system from an outside country. Well, our customers are from all over the world, so an outside country will have to change based off of where they're located. So these lookups will kind of provide a way for you to set up one time the countries that your company operates in, and then we can use that to prevent countries outside of that purview from accessing your information. You can also see toward the bottom there, the alert filters. Right there, you can see we use attack techniques, MITRE attack techniques and tactics to kind of orchestrate how our alerts work and what we're trying to achieve with these alerts. Every alert that we provide to you is tied to an alert tactic and technique. And you can see them actually in the very bottom left. Excuse me, this slide was a little hard to fit here, but you can see that we use initial access for this one alert right here, as well as some techniques at the bottom there, public facing applications, stuff like that. And then you can actually checkbox on the left-hand side and just one click of a button, install those alerts just like that. We really understand that things happen quickly and nothing makes your SOC analyst happy than being, oh, we have a way to detect what happened using that alert. You can actually grab the alerts query and run it against your system and see what's happened in the past. So Devo likes to make sure everybody is aware of what's going on and can provide that, out of the box alerting and tools to make sure that you are fully protected against anything that you may encounter. And that is about it from us over at Devo. Again, I'd like to thank everybody for joining and Jake for giving me that introduction.
Oh, of course, man, definitely. So let's see, it looks like, it looks like I got a couple of minutes here, man, if we want to tackle a couple of questions. One of them that I see in Slack here that I'm really interested in getting addressed or hearing your kind of perspective on. They asked, how do you differentiate confidently between an insider and an external threat? And I'm going to add in one piece here, and that's and does it matter? Right. So
I'm sorry. So how do we confirm?
How do you confidently detect something? How do you confidently look and say this is an insider versus an external threat? Right. So you've got an alarm. How do you confidently differentiate between those, or does it even matter?
It does matter because so depending on how the threat is introduced and if the user or employee was truly negligent in letting this insider threat in, but essentially what we do is we provide the monitoring almost at every stage, so we can see a full story of exactly what happened, right? So, somebody clicked a link, well, we have that, we're recording sessions, right? So we have that record of who did it. A lot of times that will basically kind of help determine if somebody was tricked, being used as a pawn, or just like, I don't really care, I'm just going for it. So with that, in regards, that's kind of how we make sure that we're not going to basically get mad at somebody that's being tricked rather than somebody that's just not caring or being negligent. But like I said, record everything from coming in, the steps that they take when they're in there, and then from how they're getting out.
Gotcha. A couple other questions I've got in here. One of these is how many events per second EPS does your platform support?
That is a good question. And to be fair, I'm probably going to have to go back to the team and ask them that. Okay. And I can provide an update in channel number 2, solution discussion, or actually in our Devo focused selection.
You definitely have a lot of questions in there, so you'll definitely want to hop over there for sure. But for whatever it's worth, I've seen Devo installed in some pretty beefy organizations. I don't know what the EPS was. I'm not going to throw a number out here, but unless you're Fortune 5, I think you're probably pretty well set.
It's a lot. We can adjust quickly and a lot. I want to make sure I get the right number so I'm not misleading.
Yeah. I mean, but it's fair to say that you're inside the Fortune 500, right?
Absolutely. Yep.
Yeah. So okay, awesome. And so I guess maybe one more insider threat question here. What's your nightmare insider threat story? Obviously anonymized, right? That Devo detected.
Oh goodness. This one is, I think, takes the cake. But I was working for a company, and we acquired a new customer. And this is a little, not to date myself, but this is back in the day. And essentially, the way that we would onboard this customer is that we would send them an encrypted hard drive to upload their data onto, and then they would send it back to us. And what we would do is we would have the encrypted hard drive in one package, and then the password to unlock the encrypted hard drive in the other package. Well, somebody essentially sent them the encrypted hard drive, but when they sent them the encrypted hard drive, they taped the password on top. And so when the customer got it, they were like, well, that's a little alarming. Then they used the password to unencrypt the hard drive, and then they realized that we actually had old customer data still on that hard drive. So that was a triple whammy. That one we would consider more of a negligent operation. And so there were some repercussions, but let me just say that one, little flashbacks to that incident.
Yeah, but you're not talking about Devo shipping some. I want to be like super clear that we're not talking about Devo shipping some other kind.
This is back. Right. Yeah. So Devo, to onboard your data to Devo, we have different methods, but we do not use a hard drive method like that. We have a storage file share that you can drop it off of, or we can also use built-in collectors and collect the data from your systems. Yeah. But
I just wanted to clarify, like that was a really bad insider threat story, right? But not something that Devo did, right? We don't want to.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah. Awesome. Hey, Ryan, thank you so much for being here, man. This is a fantastic presentation. Really enjoyed it. In fact, I live tweeted a piece of the presentation. Somebody replied back, I'm in a live demo getting, with their sales engineer right now, looking at the SIEM. It's super impressive. So awesome. Obviously getting some traction there, man. So
great.
Yeah, definitely. Cool. Have a good one.
Cool. Yep. Thank you. Awesome. Thanks, everyone.